Hi, we're Richard and Jackie from Early Retirement Wanderlust.
And we have just got back from the most fantastic 5 weeks RV road trip around the Rocky Mountains.
And this is the last instalment of our adventures in Colorado. So as Jackie said, we've just had 5 amazing weeks in the United States, touring around in a rental RV, looking mainly at the states that are around the Rocky Mountains.
And our last week particularly was spent around the area of Colorado Springs.
So we're home now. The last few days were a bit hectic and getting home was a bit of a challenge with flight delays and so on. So that's why we're trying to bring some of the videos together and make it coherent for you.
So we'll start with showing you how we got on in the amazing and very quirky old ghost town of St Elmo.
One of our original targets for when we came out to the Wild West was to actually find a ghost town, and St Elmo is quite a ghost town.
And we nearly didn't make it there. We were visiting it on the way through towards Colorado Springs, and it was 14 miles. When we got to the junction, the road was nice, it was paved, it was okay. We got about 4 miles into the road and it turned into a dirt track, and we parked up and we must have spent at least 10 minutes deliberating whether we were actually going to get the motorhome up that road.
But we are so glad we made the decision to go.
Yeah, Richard was a bit nervous. He didn't know whether he'd be able to turn the van around if we had to bunk out quickly. But no, we made it.
And St Elmo was quite unbelievable. The history of the place, it was an old mining town, and it literally overnight just got deserted and left, and some of the locals have bought it up now and are trying to restore certain aspects of it, but the sheer frontier history of that main street just blew my mind, and I spent a good few hours wandering around with the cameras just trying to capture the feel of it.
I did explore all the historical sites as well, but I found a much more pleasurable experience sitting at Chipmunk Crossing, which, as the name says, I sat there and the chipmunks just kept jumping all over me. It was so cool.
So that's probably why in the footage that you've just seen you didn't see very much of Jackie unless there were chipmunks involved.
My mum did remind me when I sent her a photo of a chipmunk sat on my knee that it was perhaps not the best idea, since so you do get rabies in America, but we weren't bitten.
So we'd made it up the 8-mile dirt road, and we had to make it back down the 8 miles dirt road, and then we headed much closer to Colorado Springs. So have a look at what we got up to at the Garden of the Gods.
Throughout the trip, we've been really excited about going towards Colorado Springs, and I'd seen in one of the travel books some information about the Garden of the Gods. I don't think we were prepared for how beautiful the Garden of the Gods actually was.
No, some of the images that we'd seen prior to going almost looked like super enhanced, and it was like, nah, it can't possibly be like that. But for 2 days that we were there, it just absolutely blew our minds. And every time that we went at different times of the day, just the views and the vistas changed. It was amazing.
And more wondrous than that, when we went back for sunset, for most of our trip, we've been searching for the longhorn sheep, and we did see them once at Custer State Park,
Yep.
I think. But yeah, there was 6 longhorn sheep just grazing on the cliffs, and quite a traffic jam behind them.
So after that, we decided to do the really touristy thing, which was to go up Pikes Peak. And Pikes Peak is one of Colorado's 14,000 feet mountains, but there is actually a road up it. But the restrictions were that we couldn't take the RV up. So the only alternative, and a great alternative, was to take the cog railway up.
It actually wasn't a cheap trip, and it was something that we did treat ourselves to. I think it was about $60 each once we'd paid taxes. It was pretty cool though. Just climbing up on the cog railway through the forests, we saw a stag on the railway line. The views were just immense. There was a beautiful reservoir that we went past, and then you just arrive at the top. And there's a traffic jam because there's a road to the top. We couldn't breathe because the air is so thin with the oxygen up there because you're at over 14,000 feet, and the views were just sublime.
The lack of air absolutely got to me, and I never thought it would affect me, but I was gassed, and it was really quite a claustrophobic feeling. And I think it's because you go up so quickly on the train and you don't get a chance to acclimatise, but it wasn't necessarily the most comfortable feeling. So then getting home, that was interesting. 48 hours before we flew, we got an email from BA to say that our flight had been cancelled for technical difficulties. We were due to take off on the Friday in beautiful 20 degrees, and it was postponed 24 hours.
Yeah, and the weather forecast for 24 hours later was -2 degrees and blizzard conditions at the point that we were going to be taking off.
And the weather forecast didn't disappoint.
No.
Denver really just got dumped on, and we cannot believe how quickly the weather can change from one day walking in shorts and t-shirt to the next day in sub-zero temperatures and driving snow. But we did finally make it home.
We did, but I was fascinated, sat on the runway concourse. It took them an hour to defrost the plane, and because it had been covered in snow from the blizzard, and there was 6 machines just blasting stuff at us. It was cool.
Surprisingly, after all that de-icing, we did manage to cross the Atlantic pretty much on time, but the booking clerk that had made our change of bookings only allowed us an hour and 15 to swap flights to the Manchester flight out of Heathrow, and we had about 50 minutes to go, but they wouldn't let us do it because they said we didn't have time to clear security, so we had to then rebook.
And the next available flight to Manchester was 9 hours later. Luckily, they did give us a £10 voucher to last us all day in Heathrow Airport.
But one of the mindset changes of early retirement was that actually none of that at any stage really bothered us that much, because what will be, and we knew we'd get home sometime and we didn't have to be home for work.
And we couldn't change it, so there's no use stressing about it. So that was it, our 5-week RV road trip. Coming up next week, we are going to go through some of the absolute highlights, because there were some places that we absolutely adored and would love to go back to.
So that's it. See you later.
Bye.